be my first time.
Okay, good evening. Being 7:04, we're going to call the public hearing, the first of two public hearings to order on the 2013 budget. Looks like we don't have too many public people here, but thanks. Looks like Scott and Tony are here, so that's real important. Let's see, we're going to do the minutes of the meeting real quick here.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes for the January 9th meeting as written. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? None? So moved. Accept the minutes as written. Okay, the next thing is on the agenda is the revenues. You can see on the last page of the handout, we've got the projected revenues.
Want me to go over the change?
Yeah, and let's Tim to go over some of the changes from what we had before.
Okay, so it was $15,000 on the last report for sale of town property, and the new amount of $125,921 represents the former amount plus the value of the net value of the down payment that we're receiving from the sale of Business Park Drive, as well as the value of 10 payments, which is part of our financing that we're providing to the company that's purchasing the property. And so that's where that comes from, the $125,921.
Is the purchase and sale agreement already signed?
The purchase and sale agreement is signed. There's a projected closing on or before February 28th. The sale price was $950,000 with $140,000 down and $810,000 to be financed by the town with a 30-year or a monthly payment amortized as if it were a 30-year mortgage at our interest rate, but with a balloon payment due at the end of 60 months. So basically, we're financing it for a period of 5 years, during which time we have it back on the tax rolls, provided a title is passed by April 1st of this year, and then we'll have that payment stream as well prior to the balloon payment at the end.
Tim, is there a public meeting scheduled to discuss the public sale?
Thank you. On the 31st, the selectmen are holding a public hearing at 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock as part of their meeting on the 31st.
Thank you.
Does that have any effect on any of the other revenues for rents that we're receiving? Or?
No.
It's from 6 to 7 on the 31st.
So 6 to 7 p.m. on January 31st, we'll be having a public hearing on the sale of 61 Business Park Drive. Okay. That's great. Okay, I guess we should probably do a motion to accept the revenues as amended.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to accept the miscellaneous revenues as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And so moved. Okay, so we get the revenues, get that. And I guess we'll open the public portion of the budget meeting, the public hearing. So if anybody has any questions or suggestions or comments? Scott? Yeah, I'm glad you do.
Start out on the front page of the budget. Question in regards, how come the legal line was so overspent this last year? General expenses. It was budgeted $38,000, it spent $63,000.
Probably the best would be somebody from the Board of Selectmen that could chime in with that. You?
67.
I'm still looking for the legal line.
It's,
Which line number?
Go down.
It's 67,707, yeah, is the update.
I don't see it.
It's down here.
910?
Oh, legal.
legal in
General
here.
expense, that's what's
Yeah,
messing me up.
okay.
Yeah. 99,910.
We have to defend what cases come before us. There are several ongoing, continuing.
We still have it? I mean, that's crazy.
We have tax abatement cases that have gone to Superior Court.
So the majority of these are tax abatements, you're saying?
Without having the list in front of me, I can't say the majority, but there are a couple. I think there were at least, how many? There were some that went straight to Superior Court. They did not go to Land and Tax Appeals.
The last of our 2009 appeals. And there were some big ones.
And they did not go, like I said, they didn't choose to go to Bureau of Land and Tax Appeals. They went straight to court.
And they went first.
And they do.
Since 2009, there were lots of long cases. That was the bulk of it.
What you say we're still facing? Still more?
Well, they haven't ended. We have cases that started, this year that will go into, that started in 2012 and that are continuing into 2013.
And that's my question. You had budgeted $38,000, you spent $67,000, almost $68,000. And you're budgeting $40,000 this year. But yet you said the lawsuits are still continuing?
Well, we have some that have not been resolved, but
Or a few.
we have some that have been resolved. So we're not anticipating because we're at the end of that assessment period.
Now, when it's legal general expense, is this settlement money too, or just for attorneys?
No, just attorney.
Just attorney's fees.
Attorneys? If there's settlement money, where does that come out of? Say that you lose the appeal and you have to pay them back X amount. I don't know.
Abatement expense is what.
Abatement expense?
Oh, I thought you meant in general. I was thinking of Tinker.
Well, what in that instance, what happens, Kathy? Where does that money come? If in the event that you lose, not just an abatement case, but a civil case that's brought against the town?
It would depend on the amount. If it's a large amount, and such as like Tinker, that was a very large amount.
Yep.
We would take it where we could take it. We might have to take it from the reserve fund, but there would be a line of explanation from the finance office showing where it all came from and why.
The Municipal Budget Act also allows for, in a judgment, where you can overexpend your budget due to the judgment.
By 10%?
No, due to the judgment.
Oh, I see. John, the other question I have on the first page, 993, property liability. I noticed in the PD line, the liability disappeared, so I assume it came over to this line,
That's correct.
PD section. But looking at this line, I'm questioning, we had $37,375 in the budget, and we only expended 40-some-odd%, $18,107. Is there a bill there that didn't show up, or?
That's correct. Yep. It will be paid for, and
So how much will it be?
it should be right about 97%.
About 97%, okay. The other question I had was on, underneath PD 205, overtime salaries. We had $39,554. And I remember when I served on the budget committee, they talked about bringing on part-time officers in order to offset some of the overtime. And when I looked down on the part-time salaries, part-time wages, we had 20,985, we only spent 15,000, about 75% of that on part-time wages, but yet on the overtime line, we went over by $20,000 on the overtime. Just doesn't seem to make much sense. It's not what we talked about years ago when they talked about bringing the part-time guys on to offset that overtime. Seems like it's just the opposite of what happened. You brought those part-time guys on and you still were way over on the overtime.
They've had a lot of serious crimes that have led to arrests, that led to a lot of investigation by the detectives. The armed robbery took a lot of hours. It's the only explanation I have for you is,
Does our detectives both work during the day or do they rotate shifts?
they mainly work during the day, but they work at night when necessary if they're investigating something.
So it's at night they work is all on overtime? They don't necessarily, like, have one detective come in from 7 to 3 and another detective come in from 3 to 11?
The detectives typically, I believe, work during the day, but depending on what they're investigating, if it's necessary for them to go out at night. I don't know police jargon, to case a joint. That's what they're going to do.
Surveillance.
John, that I was
Thank
concerned
you.
with on that too is the telephone line. Well, that seems like an awful lot of money for telephone. We budgeted 8,000 and we spent 95,86.
Yeah.
Does that
I can
include
shed
the
some light on
antenna
that.
system?
The PD changed carriers during the year for cellular communications, and in the process of doing that, there was overlap, and there were also, where they were using air cards with the former carrier, they're now using tablets.
What's that here, Travis, and tablet?
Air cards are essentially an internet device for the car so that they could communicate with spots, the state police terminals, so they could, pull up cars, look at license plates and that sort of thing. Whereas the new system makes use of a tablet that has 4G interface built into it. So there was overlap and there were costs associated with that switch from Sprint to Verizon during the year. And at the same time, all the other phones within the department also switched from Sprint to Verizon, the cell phones.
Is that going to be a money saver or is it going to cost us money?
I don't think we're going to save money. I think it's going to be comparable once it's all sorted out.
What was the reason for switching? Just not saving?
Because from what I understand, the tablets that are in the new cars required Verizon to run on for reliability.
The next one, it's kind of interesting, Joe, when you look at the budget. We spend more at that PD building on electricity than we do here in Town Hall. That seems like that's very odd. I mean, are all the lights on over there all the time at the PD?
Well,
Because they're not there there's an officer, at night they're usually patrolling, but I hope the lights are just left on, period. It just seems like an awful lot of money. 61, over 6,000 was budgeted to spend over $6,000. And when we look at Town Hall, we didn't spend that in the Town Hall. This building's much larger than that. It was used a lot of money.
$1,000 more.
I suspect it's not lights, because lights really isn't the draw on electricity.
But I don't know what it is.
I suspect it's equipment that they have.
I would say that's what it is too, Catherine.
I mean, because we have,
What type of heating? And when they redid the
Gas.
basement, it's all gas? They didn't
Natural
install any
gas.
electric baseboard or anything?
Do they have more computers here than here?
They
Not really.
do have monitoring systems now, and they have card swipe door, for all the doors. They have a number of little things like that. The security system that they put in. They also have 2 industrial dehumidifiers.
That's a big draw.
Very big.
Fires.
Outside of that, I'm not aware of anything.
Can I continue, Joe?
Sure, I'm for the line 400 there,
What's that?
the electric, the line 400 on the PD that you're
Yeah.
looking at.
That's what I was questioning. The next thing I have to question on is the Parks Commission, going from 33,686 to 40,200.
We just met with the Parks Commission last week. One of the things that they've got in the budget is the railings. It's going to be quite expensive. The paint keeps chipping off of the railings, and they've been trying to patch it and brush it and things like that. And included in this year was to remove the paint from that and have the proper paint put onto it. The other thing was is they've had a substantial amount of vandalism type things that were done, so they wanted to add cameras, which is a $2,000 cost to increase the amount of visibility. As
We already had cameras there.
we have two cameras.
We had the $2,000 in the budget last year, didn't get used, the $2,000 back in the budget this year for that. The main increase in here is basically going to be, it's supposed to be a one-time increase for redoing all of the railings down, like stripping off the paint and re-priming the paint.
Actually, they're going to sandblast, I think, on that.
So that's
They didn't know exactly.
the
That was
main
one
increase
quote
there.
they got.
It's just strictly for that one job. It should be a one-time fix. That's the increase that you're seeing in the park.
I guess I'll close, John, with the last thing. I look down through here and I see that we reduced our debt load somewhere around $110,000. It concerns me when I look at this budget like someone looks at their household. You have a car payment, you pay off your car, you know that you're going to have the capital improvement down the road to replace that car. I sat here in this room just a few weeks ago when the selectmen had the legislatives out of Concord, the House of Representatives and the Senate in front of them, talking about the condition of our infrastructure, such as our roadways, that we need, to improvements on our roadway. And when I look at that, we have $110,000 worth of reduction on our debt payments, which we paid off. And then I look in between raises, benefits, and retirement. We've raised the budget $135,849 when I look through that. And that's something that isn't going to be paid off or isn't going to be going away. And, if we're not serious about watching, when we pay off debt, I think that when we pay off debt, it's sad when it goes and then you look at the final number and the number says the budget only went up 0.00 some odd percent. That's not being factually true to the people in the town.
Yeah, because we have reduced
I
our...
don't think that you should take debt load and pay off debt load and then offset it, use that as an offset against what wages or what the actual budget actually went up. I think that's very misleading to the taxpayers. And with what we have for downshifting going to be going down our road within the next couple of years, we're going to be very cautious to where we're going, because there's going to be costs coming down to the town, and we know we're going to be stuck with it, the local taxpayer, until the end of the road. The federal government's going to pass it down to the state's going to pass it down to the town, and so on for the county's going to pass it to the town, and along with the school district's going to pass it back to the town. So as taxpayers, we're going to have to be very cautious on where we're going forward and where the money's being spent, because it's getting to a point that the average taxpayer is going to have a hard time making ends meet in the private sector.
I think we came up with a number that if you actually took the amount of debt that was paid off, the actual tax increase was
2.5.
I got 2.38%.
Was it 2.38?
That's what I've come up with. But I think that that's a number that really should be shown to the people, because that is true. You can't look at offsetting what you pay off debt. Granted, you might not be asking for it in taxes, but when you pay off debt or you take on debt, you've got a certain term and it's going to be paid off. Therefore, you're not going to have that obligation. Whereas when you give it to raises or benefits or retirement or some other place you put it in as a benefit to an employee or within the wage scale, you're not going to have that come back. Only if you have an employee that gets done and you start another employee at a lower rate are you ever going to reduce it in those months. So I think, to be honest with the people, you got to say, hey, we paid off a loan here, but we paid off a bond, and we had a reduction within our debt load of X. But yet Y is what's gone, the actual budget's gone up.
I think one of the most difficult things we have to do is to find ways where there could be possible any overspending or areas that we could cut back. And you were here, and we. It's tough. I think the retirement went up substantially, and that really hit us. And, yep. As you
The
said,
cost of insurance went up also, so I think it's not just that people are being given away things, it's requirements, and I think, if people read the newspaper, a simple explanation could be given for that. You don't have to go into a lot of detail about it. In terms of salary increases, I think those were kept to the minimum. I think there were merit raises were kept to the 2%. Is that not correct?
Well, they varied. They were true merit raises.
They weren't COLA. They were merit raises.
They were not COLA. They were true merit raises based on the recommendations of the department heads.
No, I know when I served on the budget committee, the PD had a 3-year contract, and the end of their 3-year contract, they were going to be paying 14 or 14.5% on their health insurance. Has that been entertained, any increase within the town employees, the rest of the employees for the town? Or are they still at just 10%?
We have not entertained that with the town employees.
Because, as you said, the insurance was an increase.
Well, the town employees have paid the percentage right along, and I don't remember exactly, and Joyce, maybe you can help me. The contract we have with the union, they weren't paying any percentage the first year of that contract, were they not?
Oh, yeah,
They're
they were.
still paying 10%, and then it went to 12%.
That's what it was.
This year.
It's 14 now.
14. Okay, I thought there was something where they weren't paying any of the percentage, but I'm wrong.
There was an increase every year. But, I mean, benefits, Jane, when you said that, well, it wasn't an actual increase, benefits are very expensive.
Exactly.
And
But some of those are not a result of the town being more generous. They're a result of insurance rates going up with LGC or whatever. That was the point I was trying to make.
But it is a benefit, and it is a benefit to the employees.
Exactly, and it's a cost to the taxpayers.
That's exactly right, and so that's why I asked you the question that as they continue to rise, the benefits, and we're going to be faced, even with the Affordable Care Act, there's going to be downshifting of the local to the locals on the cost on that. So that's going to have to be something that, even with that type of a program out there, it's still going to come down to the taxpayer covering the burden on that.
That's very true, but we do our part, I'm sorry. We do our part, I mean, every year, the town spends many hours going over the different policies, and what we might do to reduce that overall cost instead of just every year absorbing, an increase. So it's not that we're not looking and out shopping.
Oh, no, I know that, Sandy. I'm just saying, we've got to all have our eyes open and have realization that, it comes a point where the cost gets to a point that you have to make, we're going to all be faced to make some very harsh decisions and choices. I mean, you just can't, you can't keep growing and growing and growing, is my point. So, you get to a point where the local taxpayer can only afford so much. And it's not happening in the private sector like it is in the public. That's for sure.
That's a fact.
So, and we have to be wary of that.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the things we have to look at is what the trends are for employee contributions. I've heard some numbers, I think, came up with the fire department budget. And see what other towns are paying, because we try and align our wages along to be comparable to the other towns. Didn't really look into the comparable amounts for employee contributions.
And you can only do that to a certain point, John. Because, you know, you hear that a lot, we used to hear it in the school a lot. You know, Guilford was paying, well, if you look at the median income in Guilford compared to the median income in Tilton, it's much different. You know, you can pull them stats right off the state of New Hampshire website. And if you start looking at those stats, I mean, that's why it's hard to compare when they start comparing to certain towns. There's certain towns, the median income is much higher than other towns. You can also say, you can compare us to our neighbor town of Franklin. And the median income down is lower there than it is in Tilton. So you got to be careful when you start saying, well, we want to compare what one town's paying to another. You have to be aware of what the actual people are making within the town to be able to pay the taxes. I mean, I want to be able to pay them a fair wage, no question, but we also got to be fair on both sides of the issue.
Okay, so anything else anybody else want to go over? We got that? I know we have the warrant articles meeting will be the next public one. We'll have to see what comes through. That would be the final public hearing, would that be February 13th, I believe?
I don't think I'm here. Sorry.
I think that's one.
If it's the 13th, I'm going to be out of town.
So that will be interesting, how that's going to affect. One of the big things we had this year was the funding of the Pines was a big thing we hashed over quite a bit. I don't know what your opinion was on that.
I think we've been very clear to them in the last 2 years that, you know, we expect a certain amount of performance out of the amount of money that they receive. And I did not attend the meeting this year, but I know in the past years, we had concerns with our welfare director asking for assistance, which she was denied, to be able to put kids down there for scholarships for the summer program. And I know that was of concern to the budget committee back then. And she said, here, our Heather sat in front of us and mentioned that exact fact when we asked her about outside agencies that she worked with. And I don't know if that got corrected or if she has access to it or if she has communications on that now or not. But that was a big stickler one that I said on the list.
And it's still a big stickler. And the lack of grants is still a big stickler.
Then there should be an adjustment as such, because that's something that we said here, and they had Mr. Doan, I think his name is.
No, he's still there.
Jim Doan was his name, but I remember he sat in front of us and he took notes down, and so, I mean, we all said that, you know, we put a dollar figure, and we said, we'll see what happens in another year. Maybe right another year, and it's for you to make the judgment call, whether you think that the needs of the town was met, and were some of the issues that were brought forth, and there was only a few issues that were actually brought forth, and that was one of them. And I think Jane just hit on the other one about the going out and getting more grants. And then Catherine brought up about different programs that they
Big
have for
time,
younger kids.
hugely.
No, high school.
It's huge.
They have a
Yeah,
lack
high
of
school and
programming for high school kids.
Startlingly.
They have improved over the years, but there's still that kind of void. There's a lot more for the younger kids. And I think we'll all agree that it is difficult to entertain high school kids.
I think anyone would agree to that.
But nevertheless,
There seems to be a
other
lack of
communities
supervision,
do
too.
it.
Yeah, one of the other things that we've had difficulty with was, you know, a lot of outside agencies requesting different fund, you know, and increased funds. We've tried to keep that as level as possible. As a lot of stuff turns back to them, and they can't get their other grants. They're coming more and more to us for more funding, such as like the bus service, the Winnipesaukee, they came before us for more money again, and then we looked at it, and they're not receiving a lot of grants that they should be getting, or help from public areas, via advertising on the bus, or, if they're driving the bus with an end stop is Walmart, you would think that Walmart would kick in some money to keep the bus coming to them, as well as Laconia isn't chipping in very much for that, and a good percentage of the route is there. So, we looked at a lot of those things, and I think next year, have to have some continuity to continue to say, well, we said, this is what we want you to do. This year, we're asking that, and if it doesn't happen next year, the budget committee will have to follow through on
I
that.
think when you watch communities such as Laconia and Franklin that's under a tax cap, John, you're seeing that that's where they're cutting first, they're cutting outside agencies first. They're cutting off the outside programs first, and then they're going, have to stay within whatever their tax cap is for that year, whether it's 2 or 2.5%. And if you read in the local paper just recently with the budget from Belknap County, going to go up 8.9%. Laconia pretty much said if that went up 8.9%, that would take care of all their cap. And basically, they would have no increase, be able to increase anything within the town, because just that 8.9% in Belknap County, what Belknap County was asking for was going to be 2 or 2.5 or whatever the cap was that they could pay out. So they were very concerned with that. But I think that's why when you look at Laconia cutting, that's why they're cutting, because they have to stay within underneath that cap, which basically guides them financially on what they can spend.
I think one of our concerns has been that we're funding other communities, and Laconia is one of those other communities we seem to be funding in a lot of the agencies. They go to Laconia for funds, and they come to us for funds. We give them the funds. Laconia gives them nothing. And that's what we made very clear to them, that we need to see a return on what we invest, and we need to see that other communities are contributing, and that we're not offsetting their lack of contribution.
Well, I think that's with any outside agency. You have no guarantee what the other towns or communities or what other support.
But we can look at what happened the last prior 2 years and say, well, it's not going to happen a third year here. And I think that's what we've tried to look at this year.
Perfect example. I mean, and it's a great outfit. It's Franklin Visiting Nurses. I believe Franklin gives them nothing. I mean, Northfield gives them nothing. I think they zero out their money.
They did last year. I think they cut them last year. I don't know if they zeroed them out. I know they cut them.
Almost nothing, I think it was. If you look at their budget. Joyce, do you have any idea on what they gave for visiting nurses, Northfield?
The visiting nurse,
I know very little.
my guess is it's usually around 2,500, 2,000.
I have one over there on the desk under my coat.
I know it's very little. I mean, we gave them much more than that, and we're a smaller community than Northfield. Yeah, so that's perfect. The only other question I had, John, I had to skip over, on the first page, 385, around 385, Town Hall janitorial, why is that jumping up so much? Going from 48 to 73, 74?
Because we hired an agency that will actually clean town hall. Not to sound sarcastic, but we've been, we've tried to do it with an employee. That didn't work. We tried,
But it was at a lot less of money, Catherine, when we were doing it with an employee than the $7,300, so.
but it wasn't getting done.
But was it because there wasn't enough time being paid out?
I think lack of experience was the big, it was the first time this person that we hired had ever done anything like that. I think it was lack of experience, no know-how.
Part of the issue that we've had with this is, I go back a lot of years, and we hire someone and they start out really great, but within hardly any time at all, it's like, well, did they clean anything? They want to check, but they put one to work. And you get to the point where you get tired of constantly calling their superior and saying, if you can do this, if you can do that, all you guys have been doing. You know, and so every year when the contract would expire, we look for somebody else. You know, and this particular company is, they gave us a good deal, I felt, on doing the town hall, police department, and we increased, police department was only one day, and we increased that to 2.
We increased the hours in town hall as well.
Yes.
With the usage of upstairs.
Yes, because we use the upstairs now, and it wasn't getting the attention that it needed. And, you know, this is our first year in the contract with them, and we'll see how it goes.
I mean, because when you go down through the lines and you pull up the janitorial,
Right.
and you pull out the janitorial supplies, and you pull out the janitorial and the park and stuff, we're up just shy of $17,000. We're spending on
Yeah, for everything,
janitorial.
for everything.
Yeah, and I know when we had a part-time employee, and that person, I believe, was doing town hall, and was doing PD and doing the parks, and we weren't spending that kind of money.
But we also weren't getting that kind of service. You know,
But was it because of the hours, we're saying, I keep asking that question, was it the lack of amount of hours that we were putting in?
You had one individual
Yep.
trying to do what 2 people do in town hall twice a week.
But he ran into the problem too, with the number of hours he worked. You know, and he couldn't get it done. This was part of the
You
problem.
mean he was limited to the amount of hours he could provide for work?
Right.
And he wasn't getting it done. I mean,
But the majority-
Riverfront Park, the bathrooms were a nightmare.
The majority of
Well, they
last
get like
year,
An hour after they clean them too. You get the
Well-
wrong group in there.
Yeah,
That can happen.
we have cameras. I mean, you know, we watched things get done. That
I'm
shouldn't
not
have been
done.
I'm just saying, if it increases more, I think that we ought to look at the option of going back and probably having a part-time person, because it is getting up very high.
Oh, I agree that, you know, we will look at anything and everything. We just are trying to find a satisfactory way of keeping everything clean and stocked. You know, and when we come in, we're not either having to re-clean or call them back.
When I look at this, one thing I noticed, I don't see a janitorial line under the public works garage.
They do their own,
They did their own.
they don't have the public coming in and out of the buildings like we do. They don't have the number of people going in and out of there. They have a very small area,
It's down there.
Not inside the building.
not inside.
They come down there to put in recyclables and stuff.
Not in the
Some may
volumes,
go inside.
I was gonna say, I think a fair amount of people go inside. I see them parking over there and go.
not the volumes that walk through town hall.
No, I know, but it's still not the volume, I mean, it's no different than the PD either.
Oh, it's a lot different than the PD. Just look at the personnel you have at the PD, in and out.
They do their own.
Yeah.
and give you the answer on, Northfield, in their budget for 2012, had $5,000 for VNA.
Last year.
15.6, something like that. And also, community action for them was 10,500, or 10,200.
At the VNA, they base their funding amount request on per capita at $4.37 per person.
But Northfield has more people than we have.
Is it?
Well, I'm sure they requested more.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, Northfield, so I'm trying to get back to the point that you said you look at what other people pay, and, you know, for years, I know Northfield has paid for the Franklin visiting nurses, they paid much less a rate than Tilton always has on that same program.
Well, but, I mean, just because other towns are falling down in their responsibility doesn't mean Tilton should.
Hold on, I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I'm just saying it's hard to compare what others are paying.
Tough, yeah.
And I think that was my point I was trying to make,
Yeah.
is that, you know, you compare, you look and say, well, Laconia's not funding this agency, or you could look at, like, Northfield's not funding, it's hard to compare to what the other communities are doing.
Unless you're
Well, that
talking
was-
something like bus service.
Yeah, that was a little different. What that was about was the bus service. Now, I mean, the person that we interviewed, Belmont wasn't paying, Laconia wasn't paying, no, it was Guilford. It's Guilford. There were several of them that weren't paying.
And Laconia was paying far less.
Laconia was paying less than the formula they had. So they're looking for Tilton to pay top dollar. And they freely admitted that they didn't have in place any way of saying, well, we're servicing your community, you need to chip in. And they weren't actively doing this. So that's what they're saying, that, we look at what the others are paying. In that instance, we did, because it was reasonable to do so. But with the visiting nurses, we don't look at what other communities are paying. We look at how many people are they serving in Franklin, what is the cost of that service.
In Tilton.
I mean, in Tilton. I'm sorry, you keep saying Franklin, it was stuck in my head. And, basically, what are we getting for our dollar? And it seemed reasonable.
And I think that's what we're trying to look at with the Pines. And we don't think we're getting a return on the investment. Tilton residents aren't. They're not providing the services that are needed. In other words, they have child care before the buses come, but there's no supervision often, or there's no activity in the afternoon. Some of the grants that supposedly they're asking for, they don't offer the services that those grants involve. So that was kind of sketchy, and we never got an answer on that. And I think they're still not giving the scholarships. I went over there twice, and there was one person there both times for any kind of supervision. The executive director was not there either time, and only one client was there. I went in the middle of the morning, and I was told, well, we're busy, come back on an afternoon, that's when we're really busy. So I went back in the middle of the afternoon, and there was one person who came in while I was there.
Yeah,
So,
one of the things with the Pines, we actually cut back an additional 5,000 from the previous years. We cut back. So we.
John, could I make a comment as
Sure.
a citizen?
Sure.
So, I just want to say, I go to the Pines almost every day because I've got 2 kids that go there after school. And I think it really depends on what time of day you're there. But there are activities there in the afternoon. In fact, it's one of the things I like about it. They keep the kids really moving around, and games and, physical activity after their homework. So, I think it's, it really depends on what kind of time slice you look at what they're doing. But every time I've been there, there have been multiple people supervising, as well as someone up in the office area, too, so.
You wouldn't expect them to be busy during the day when school is in session.
well, she told me to come back in the afternoon, on Thursday afternoon, and I did, and that's when one person came in. That's when the preschool children were supposed to be there with the parents.
One of the other areas we cut back on would be the level funded was the Red Cross, and although it was difficult, they wanted 1,500, we gave them 500.
And the bottom line is that the way they're published in the budget, the legislative body can see very clearly
But there is some
what
contention.
agencies are recommending to fund and how much, and can make a decision at the annual town meeting if they want to zero or reduce or increase.
One of the things to realize is the Red Cross can fund themselves in a lot of other areas, through other fundraising things, and it's a national organization. And we kind of focused on the things that actually help and reduce costs for the town. So if we cut out their funding, or they were to disappear, how much would it cost us? And that's the thing that we have to start looking at, and we did start looking at. I think that's pretty much when you were on the budget committee, how we looked at things.
Now, on youth assistance, is that why
Yes.
is Senate back into that? Or did
No.
they-
No.
So they never did come back?
No.
We asked them what Samverton was doing for people that needed those services, and
We
they
have to
said
remember,
nothing,
youth
didn't they?
assistance program is an intervention, and it's designed to keep kids out of the court system. When you go into the military, that's where it can affect them, because those juvenile records are opened by the military. So if they have a court record, that's the end of that hope. I think Samverton uses the juvenile justice system in Laconia,
They
which,
use Belknap County. I think they're using
which is not an
Bryan
intervention program.
No, they're using Bryan Loan.
Yeah, the other problem is CHINS, there's no funding from the state for child in need of services. But I know the Winnisquam Regional School District would like to have some of those CHINS monies, but the youth assistance program is helping the Northfield and Tilton kids that have those issues. So, you know, in that respect, if that money
There's
is
still 2 people working?
one,
Just one down
Yep,
with an
there?
that's it.
assistant.
Because that was a concern we had back when they came to us
She had a,
a year after Samverton had left. They were hoping to get Samverton back, but if they did, she was going to have to make the hard choice.
she had a grant which paid for her to have, I forgot what she called her. It's not an apprentice, but she had a young
Intern.
Intern.
that helped her for a lot of the year.
Jim, a question on the sale. The revenue was coming in one lump sum to begin with, if it goes through and goes through the whole process, which is $181,000. Then there are 10 payments after that. Will those payments be for this revenue year, or will they extend into the next year? Or do we know that yet?
For 2013, what's budgeted are 10 payments of $3,742.05, plus the net down payment less the seller fees. So that's where it was $110,000 and change for 2013. In 2014, it would be 12 payments of $3,742.05.
Okay.
And for each year thereafter until the balloon payment of roughly $729,000.
So it'll run over the next 2 to 3 cycles of the budget?
It will go 5 years.
Excuse me.
Each year, that will be revenue for the town.
Okay. So what we're getting right now is the projected revenue with the lump sum and the
And
10 payments?
Right, just through 2013. And then it'll also be, what you don't see on there, of course, is that it'll be part of our assessed, back on the assessment rolls for taxing for 2013, provided title changes hands prior to April 1st, which it's expected to be.
Thank you.
John, as a water commissioner, I'm going to make this statement as a water commissioner. I spoke with Tim earlier today in regards to the sale of the building, and he brought up a point, or just something you heard,
I understood that there was going to be water from a tank up behind Nickerson and gravity fed to your other tank in Northfield.
Yeah.
That was the plan.
He asked me if the water district had plans within the next couple of years of bringing a water tower up on Nickerson's property. And I told him, I said, absolutely not. I mean, it would not happen. The earliest it could happen is probably 5 years. I mean, the cost for just the tank is like $1.5 million just for the tank. And then you have the line to get up to the tank. When we were, as water commissioners, when we had our public meetings with Walmart, they're going to be building an addition onto their building out here this coming spring. They're out to bid now. And when we were having our meetings, Nickerson, both the Nickersons, the son and the father, along with their attorney, came to our meetings. And our engineer was there, and we were trying to negotiate with Walmart for their needs. They were looking at initially 480,000 gallons of water within a 4-hour window, which that's half of our capacity. And there was just no way we could provide that. And so we worked with them, and we came up with a solution in the meantime, Nickerson was at those meetings, and he heard our engineer talking about a tank and so forth at exit 20 to offset the deficiencies we have out there, just because of all the demand for fire flows. And the Walmart talked originally about putting up a fire suppression tank like they have at Lowe's and Kohl's and Home Depot, which we've had problems with every one of them. And we just, as a water district, we've passed regulations that we're no longer going to accept those within the system, just because DES came on our back and said you have to do something, because this is bad for your system to have all this water that's just stagnant. So we negotiated, and during the negotiations, as I say, the Nickersons were there. They went out and they purchased a piece of property above their piece that they owned, the park, the business park, which gave them the elevation equal to our reservoir in Northfield. And he came back to us in the meeting and said, hey, I've got this piece of land now that gives us the elevation that you need. Why he did that, I don't know. I guess he thought he had an ace in a hole with it. But we're able to, with the SCADA system, be able to hook up to our pump station to provide the water that Walmart is going to need for their expansion. So when Tim asked me today, he says that the water district planned within the next couple of years, was it 2 years, Tim, you initially mentioned that?
I was just curious what the plans were.
Yeah, whether we were going to do anything with the water tank on Nickerson. I said, not that I see in the future.
And I asked you the same thing, remember the other night when we had the public hearing with all of the senators and reps? Because I had heard the same thing.
So I don't know where that got started, but it's definitely, I can tell you as a commissioner, it's not on the horizon in the next 5 years. Not with the cost. I mean, the cost is probably plus $2.5 million to actually, connect to a tank and put a tank up there. So I just want to make sure that when it starts talking about selling 61 Business Park Drive, that it's not mentioned that the water district's going to be putting a tank up there, because it's not on the horizon at all.
That's not contingent on the sale.
Huh?
That's not contingent on the sale.
Okay, good.
Okay. Anything else? I guess that's it for the public portion of the meeting. And I don't know if there's any other business we need to tend to.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Appreciate you, looking out there for us.
I make a motion that we...
You know,
we have
Scott,
a
there
motion
are
to
still
adjourn?
openings on the Budget Committee, in case you were wondering.
We have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Don't move. B. No, the next meeting